All right, so welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going down the QAnon rabbit hole,
Oh, yeah.
using what you sent us from,
Mike Rothschild.
yeah, The Storm is Upon Us, his book.
A great book, by the way.
Yeah, so think of us like, your guides through all this.
I mean, it really is a rabbit hole, though.
Oh, absolutely.
But, it's not just a fringe theory.
Yeah,
QAnon has had a real impact on things.
it really has.
Real world stuff, even politics.
For sure. Like, Rothschild even calls QAnon a conspiracy theory of everything. And it sounds kind of crazy at first, but when you actually look into it.
Oh, it's wild.
Yeah.
And honestly, reading the book, what surprised me was how much it pulls from just all sorts of things.
It's like a conspiracy theory buffet.
Right. Myths, old scams, even real political stuff.
And it just, mashes it all together.
Yeah, to make its own weird narrative.
It's kind of like if you took a puzzle and just forced all the wrong pieces together.
Exactly. And then there's how it all started, right? You have this...
Oh, yeah, 2017.
Yeah, this anonymous Q guy.
On 4chan, of all places.
Right. Claiming to have, top secret government clearance and dropping these...
Top secret clearance, and he's on 4chan.
Exactly. But that's the thing the book points out.
Yeah.
People want to feel like they're in the know.
Oh, for sure. Like, you have some secret knowledge.
Right. And Q tapped right into that.
It's like an inside joke, but with, real consequences.
Oh, yeah. And then, Q starts making these predictions.
Oh, right. Like, Hillary Clinton's going to get arrested any day now?
Which obviously never happened.
Yeah, so you'd think that would be it, right? People would just...
move on.
Yeah, but that's not what happens.
Nope. Instead, it
gets weird.
It goes to 8chan.
Yeah, 8chan, and the predictions get even crazier.
The storm, the Great Awakening, it's all going to come crashing down.
Almost biblical.
Yeah, and that's something else from the book.
Okay.
QAnon, it thrives on these failed predictions.
Yeah, because they don't discredit it. It's like, it almost makes it stronger.
They reinterpret it.
And just, reinforces their beliefs even more.
Makes them dig in deeper.
So it's not just the conspiracy itself, but how it's, structured.
Yeah, how it lets them move the goalposts.
Yeah, and hold on to their beliefs no matter what.
Exactly.
It's funny, though, because you really got to go back further than 4chan and 8chan.
Oh, yeah.
To really understand this stuff.
Back to its roots.
Like, Rothschild connects it to, Pizzagate, blood libel myths, even financial scams, like the Omega Trust.
Oh, yeah, that one's wild.
Right. It's like QAnon's a Frankenstein monster.
It is. It's like they took bits and pieces of all these older ideas.
Yeah.
Like, take the Omega Trust. They promise people all this money.
Right. Based on this, super complicated financial scheme.
Yeah, and it sounds crazy, but it's so similar to how QAnon promises this storm is gonna,
usher in a new era. Yeah.
make everything better.
So it's not just the beliefs, but also, how they hook people.
The tactics.
Whether it's money or taking down your enemies, it's always a promise of something.
A reward.
Yeah, and that's why understanding those old scams is important.
It shows you the blueprint for QAnon.
How it works, yeah.
How it plays on people's hopes and fears.
Yeah, it's almost like a virus,
Oh,
mutating and evolving.
Getting stronger.
And one of the biggest mutations is, of course, the internet.
The internet and social media especially.
The book goes into, all these platforms, 4chan, 8chan, Reddit, Facebook.
All of them.
It's crazy how something from, the dark corners of the internet can get so big.
It goes mainstream.
Yeah, QAnon symbols at rallies, people getting elected based on these beliefs.
It's wild.
How does that even happen?
Rothschild calls it digital soldiering. These QAnon followers, they don't just sit there.
Right.
They spread it. They make memes.
They're like an army of...
yeah, digital soldiers.
Yeah.
Pushing this stuff using coded language.
So it's like guerrilla marketing, but for a conspiracy theory.
It is, and it works. The book talks about how algorithms...
Oh, yeah, algorithm, online community.
Even mainstream media sometimes.
Maybe accidentally, but they all helped QAnon grow.
The old saying, any publicity is good publicity.
Right. And that brings us to a big question.
Okay.
If social media helps spread QAnon, can it also be part of the solution?
That's a good question. We've seen some platforms try to crack down on QAnon.
Yeah.
But is it enough? And then there's the whole issue of censorship.
It's tricky.
Even for dangerous ideas.
Yeah, we could talk about that for hours.
But we should probably talk about QAnon's real-world impact, too. Because
yeah, it's not just an online thing.
not a game.
It's had some serious consequences.
Yeah, the book goes into some specific cases.
Violent cases.
Yeah, like the murder of a mob boss.
Kidnappings.
It's scary to think these beliefs can have such a big impact.
A devastating impact.
And it's not always, dramatic like that.
Right.
The book also talks about how QAnon
tears families apart. Yeah. Breaks down trust in institutions.
spreads misinformation, like about COVID.
It's like a poison.
It really is.
Creates paranoia, division.
Real farm.
And what's even scarier, it's always changing.
Yeah, QAnon's constantly adapting.
Like the book talks about this pastel QAnon.
Yeah, it's like a softer version.
More appealing, aimed at a wider audience.
Especially women.
So they're basically rebranding it.
Yeah, making it more palatable.
It's both clever and, terrifying.
It shows you how QAnon isn't static.
Yeah, it's not.
It's constantly shifting, using whatever fears people have to gain traction.
It's like a chameleon.
Exactly. Blending in, getting harder to spot.
And that's why understanding it is so important.
It's not just about debunking specific things.
Yeah, it's about the bigger picture.
This psychology.
The tactics.
So you don't fall for it.
Because knowledge is power, right? Especially online.
Especially online. Whew, I think we've covered a lot already.
I know, right?
Maybe we should take a breather.
Yeah, we'll be back in a bit to talk more about QAnon. So we're back and still deep in QAnon territory.
Still down the rabbit hole.
It's wild how this thing went from, online forums to actually messing with elections, especially the 2020 one.
It's almost like,
It really is.
It's like it crawled out of the internet and into our democracy.
It did. And Rothschild, he really explains how QAnon was a big part of that whole stop the steal thing.
Oh, absolutely. And all those election fraud claims. They built their own reality.
Yeah.
Where anything that didn't fit was just part of the conspiracy.
It's kind of scary how misinformation can do that,
It really is. And then, you have January 6th.
Oh, yeah.
The Capitol attack.
There were a bunch of QAnon people were right there in the thick of it.
A lot of people saw that and realized, whoa, this is serious.
It was a wake-up call for sure.
This isn't just online anymore.
It's real life.
And the book, it talks about specific people.
Yeah, like Ron Watkins.
The 8-sockin guy?
Yeah, and how he pushed those election conspiracies.
No, do you think he was, intentionally manipulating people? Or was he just...
That's a good question. I mean...
caught up in it himself?
It's hard to say. Rothschild lays out a lot of evidence, but it's still kind of a mystery.
It is.
Who is Q anyway?
Right. Is it one person, a group, some, AI thing?
AI.
I mean, people have theories.
I bet.
Rothschild looks at a bunch of them. Lone mastermind, collective effort, even foreign governments.
Really?
It's a real whodunit.
That's crazy.
But Rothschild argues that focusing too much on Q's identity might be a distraction.
From the bigger picture, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not about unmasking the person, it's about...
understanding how this even happened.
Exactly, why are people so drawn to these theories even when...
even when there's so much evidence against it.
Right, is it just a lack of critical thinking?
Maybe. Or is there something else?
I mean, Rothschild talks about distrust in institutions,
Right.
People wanting certainty in a world that's,
Uncertain.
Yeah, and that feeling of being in the know.
You have the secret knowledge.
While everyone else is clueless.
But it's the membership fee for that club is your sanity.
It can be, and there's also the community aspect.
Oh, yeah.
People find support online.
Even if it's based on, totally false stuff.
It's almost like a cult,
Yeah, you have the leader figure, Q.
The shared beliefs, the us versus them mentality.
It's powerful stuff and hard to break free from.
And the book, it doesn't pretend to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Rothschild admits helping people leave QAnon is hard.
Because it's not just about, giving them the facts.
It's about understanding why they believe this stuff in the first place.
The emotional needs, the anxieties.
Exactly. So you have to build trust.
Okay.
Give them other sources of information, other communities.
But you can't, condone their beliefs either.
No, it's a delicate balance.
So you don't want to push them further down the rabbit hole.
It's tricky, for sure. One thing that struck me in the book was just how much QAnon content there is.
Oh, yeah.
It's endless, thousands of Q drops, memes, videos.
It never stops.
It makes you wonder if we can ever really stop it.
Yeah, it's like a hydra, You cut off one head and 2 more grow back.
That's a good analogy.
Is there any way to stop disinformation in the digital age?
It's a challenge, but Rothschild has some ideas.
Okay, like what?
Critical thinking, media literacy.
Yeah, those are important.
We need people to be skeptical.
Does, Teaching someone to fish.
Exactly. Give them the tools to evaluate information themselves.
So they're not just relying on, like, social media companies to tell them what's true.
Right, and speaking of social media companies...
Oh, yeah, they've been getting a lot of heat for them.
A lot of people say they haven't done enough.
Yeah, but then there's the censorship issue.
It's a tough one.
It is, because on one hand...
they need to be responsible for what's on their platforms.
But then there's free speech.
And who decides what's true?
It's a balancing act, but we can't just, like, do nothing.
No, the book makes that very clear.
The consequences are too real.
And it's not just QAnon. Rothschild says this is just the beginning.
The beginning?
Yeah, the stuff that caused QAnon, the distrust, the anxiety, it's still there.
So we'll probably see more conspiracies like this.
Probably even worse ones.
That's kind of depressing.
It's a challenge, for sure, but we have to face it.
If we want a better society, yeah.
A more informed society, a safer society.
Okay, before we move on, I want to go back to something we talked about before.
Okay.
The violence.
Yeah, we talked about January 6th.
But there are other examples in the book.
Like the Matthew Wright case.
Oh, right. The guy who drove that armored truck onto the Hoover Dam Bridge.
He was demanding the release of some secret report.
Yeah, like straight out of a movie.
But it shows how these beliefs can make people do dangerous things.
And it's not just isolated incidents.
Right. Rothschild talks about a trend of QAnon followers getting more aggressive.
Online and offline.
This isn't just talk anymore.
It's serious.
That's why understanding the psychology behind it is so important.
So we can recognize the warning signs.
Intervene early.
Offer people a different path.
Before it's too late.
Well, this has been intense, to say the least.
It has.
We've covered a lot, but there's still more to discuss.
There is.
So in the final part of our deep dive,
okay,
we'll look at what QAnon might do in the future.
The future of QAnon.
Yeah, and what we can do to stop it. You know, through all this, it hits you how sneaky QAnon is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just a normal conspiracy.
It changes all the time.
Yeah, constantly evolving, like it's designed to, use people's weakness.
It finds those cracks and just, like, slithers in.
Rothschild calls it a shape-shifting monster, which... yeah. Pretty good way to put it, but you got to remember the real people affected by this stuff. Like, it's easy to focus on
the crazy stuff.
Yeah, all the weird claims and stuff, but
yeah,
there's a human cost here.
There is. The book talks about families getting torn apart, people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
Their friends even, violence, crime.
It's not just some game.
It's not. It has real consequences.
It does, and the book also talks about the mental health side of it,
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of QAnon followers have, like, anxiety, depression, paranoia.
It makes you wonder, does QAnon attract people who are already struggling, or does it make it worse?
It's like a chicken or the egg thing,
It is, but whatever it is,
yeah,
the results aren't good.
We got to find better ways to help people with these issues because they're vulnerable to this kind of
manipulation.
Yeah, and the book talks about how hard it is to actually help people leave QAnon. Like, it's not just...
oh, no.
You can't just, like, tell them they're wrong and expect that to fix it.
It doesn't work like that.
It's way more complicated.
It takes time.
Yeah, building trust, helping them emotionally, giving them different information. Like, it's... Rothschild says empathy and patience are key. And focusing on what you have in common. Like, you got to gently nudge people towards a, more critical way of thinking.
It's tough, but it's important.
Something that really got to me in the book was how QAnon latched on to the whole COVID pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like they were just, like, primed for all that misinformation about the virus.
The pandemic was, like, the perfect storm for QAnon.
Yeah, all that fear, the uncertainty.
And the isolation.
People were isolated.
QAnon loves that stuff.
And they were right there, pushing their conspiracy theories about
everything.
The origins of the virus, masks, vaccines.
Even those dangerous cures.
Like MMS, which is basically bleach, I mean.
It's scary how fast that stuff spreads.
It is, especially during a crisis like that.
We need better media literacy, better critical thinking skills.
For sure, so people can tell what's real and what's not.
Spot the BS.
Yeah, and not fall for those easy answers that,
Play on your emotions.
The book doesn't have all the answers, but it does a good job of explaining how QAnon works and how dangerous it could be.
It does.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is QAnon isn't just some random thing.
Yeah.
It's like a symptom of something bigger.
Of a sick society.
Yeah. Like our anxieties about the future, our distrust in institutions, wanting those simple answers when things are really complicated.
It's a warning sign.
That things are messed up.
Big time.
So where do we go from here? How do we fight this stuff?
Well, Rothschild has a few ideas.
So,
Building up our defenses against misinformation,
so
promoting critical thinking, stronger communities,
yeah,
fixing the problems that make people vulnerable to this stuff in the first place.
that's a big job.
Yeah.
It is, but it's important.
It is. Like, we got to be careful about what we see and read.
Be skeptical.
Have those tough conversations with people who think differently.
But do it respectfully.
And support things like media literacy programs.
Education is key.
We can't just let social media companies off the hook either. We have to hold them accountable.
Yeah, demand more transparency, maybe some regulations.
They have a lot of power.
They do. And this isn't a fight we can afford to lose.
The stakes are too high.
This whole deep dive into QAnon has been quite the journey.
Yeah.
It's made me realize just how important critical thinking is and media literacy and building a stronger society.
I agree. It's been intense, but important.
Understanding this stuff, it's how we protect ourselves in our communities.
Absolutely. So stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay informed.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.